Welcome to Threads of Sustainability, where you get to hear the passionate, informative, and engaging conversations of creatives, makers, manufacturers, and producers from all over the globe. We explore what sustainability can look like in the quilting, fiber, and textile world, and I'm your host, Bridget O'Flaherty, also known as the Sustainable Quilter. Welcome to another episode of Threads of Sustainability. I'm your host, Bridget O'Flaherty. I am a quilter and textile artist who is curious about what sustainability can look like in the textile industry. And I really love talking with different people in this industry who are doing all kinds of different things, including artists, including people who are producing materials, and people who are doing research and policy making, and all kinds of people, even just everyday folks who are out there trying to figure out how to bring sustainability into their practice. So today I've got this amazing guest, Carole Lyles Shaw. You might have heard of her. She's a pretty awesome modern quilter doing some great things. And it was such an interesting conversation to have with her because we were talking about it from the perspective of being an artist in the quilt world. And we were talking about mindful purchasing and mindful quilting and all of the things that kind of surround working in this quilt space. And it was a great conversation. I hope you enjoy hearing what Carole and I had to say. I'm very excited to welcome this next guest that I've got to Threads of Sustainability. I've got Carole Lyles Shaw with me today, and I am so grateful that you're here and so excited to talk to you and learn more about your journey and your story. And I just thank you. Welcome. I'm happy to have you here.
Well, thank you, Bridget. I am thrilled to be here, and I love the focus of your series. I've been listening to some of your other interviews, and they've all been really interesting. So thanks again for the invitation.
Awesome. I'm so glad you're here. So I want to sort of start at I guess your beginning and kind of give us the trajectory of your path to lead you to having the kind of care and concern that you do over the consumer purchasing and how that's not really helping sustainable businesses and this industry be sustainable. So I just want to kind of learn about how you got from there to here. Did you always sew your whole life?
Oh, absolutely not. I started making quilts in my 40s.
Oh, okay.
And I had not sewn. I was not aware at the time of any quilters or quilting tradition in my, immediate family. Although I knew that my grandmother and a couple of great aunts did crochet. They made Afghans and that sort of thing, but I had no interest in that. But in my 40s, I decided out of the blue to make quilts for my nieces and nephews, my sisters, multiple sisters, children.
Okay. You just decided, hey, I'm going to do this?
Library, got some books, watched, found some TV shows, Eleanor Burns' Quilt in a Day, I guess, and some magazines and, read and figured it out.
But you hadn't sewn, had you sewn clothing and stuff as a kid, or this was just totally new? You just decided to branch into this?
I took one very brief home ec class in junior high school. And I still remember making a skirt and wearing it to school a couple of times. And then deciding I'm not interested in this at all. And that was the end of that.
That was the end of that. So why quilts? What was the appeal at the time? What made you think, hey, I'm gonna make quilts for my nieces and nephews?
I really have no idea where the impulse actually came from.
Okay.
Other than when I think back, as I was doing, researching about, okay, so what is a quilt? How do you actually make one? Had to go out and buy a sewing machine.
Right.
And, and went to Joanne Fabrics because that was all I knew about at the time.
Right.
But what appealed to me was the sense that I was creating something that would provide warmth. It was made with my hands. It wasn't a store-bought gift.
Yeah.
So I had invested time and love and care into making this thing. And they would put it on their beds or, lay on it with the dog or whatever they did with it. I didn't really care.
Yeah.
But then I got fascinated by color and shape and pattern. Now, I had always been interested in modern art, particularly painting, all
Okay.
my adult life since
Okay.
college, really. And I realized that there were some corners of the quilting world, the art quilt world,
Yeah.
that were experimenting with the same ideas that my favorite painters were,
Yeah.
and so forth. So I quickly moved from making patterns, the traditional quilt patterns,
Hmm.
or pattern out of a magazine, but the repetitiveness of making, 50 bucks of the same little whatever,
It's a
whatever.
little tedious. It can be a little
Oh,
tedious.
I said, I can't do this. I just can't do this.
I hear you.
So I quickly moved into the art quilt world. I found a guild in Baltimore, which is where I grew up and lived at the
Okay.
time. And they mentored me because I really didn't know the basics of sewing a quilt. I mean, I kind of had figured it out, but I hadn't taken a class.
Right.
And they took me under their wing. It's the African American Quilters of Baltimore. I'm still a member.
Amazing.
And they took me under their wing, particularly some of the women members who were really master and heirloom level quilters. I mean, that's
Right.
the level they were at. And they just insisted that I learn the basics and learn them well. Whether or not I wanted to use all those techniques didn't matter,
Right.
but they were insistent that I had some of the discipline and understood fabric and what better fabric was and how to recognize it and why you didn't use polyesters and
Right.
so
Right.
I got a really good education from them and then started taking classes and learned more as I went along. But what really continued to keep me engaged to this day in the quilt world is the ability to have freedom in design, color, ideas,
Yeah.
exploring and so forth. And I just love that. And that's what I try to impart to my students or when I'm lecturing. Patterns are great. I love pattern designers. I'm glad they're out there doing it because a lot of times some people just need a pattern and get a quilt made and
Yeah. Yeah.
off it
It
goes.
makes me appreciate the people who can do that kind of
Oh,
work
yeah.
so much
Yeah.
more because I have done it and now I realize, no, I don't like that. And I really appreciate the people who can do it
Yes.
because they are beautiful quilts, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
So that's how I got started making gifts for some young people in my family. And
And did
I,
you have an art background as well? You said you did a little bit in college, some of stuff that you're interested in. Was that more just special interest or do you
it
have a
was
background?
special interest. My
Okay.
training, my college degrees are not in the art world at all.
Okay. Okay.
But I lived in Baltimore, and of course, we have wonderful museums in the Baltimore, Washington, Philadelphia corridor.
Right.
So I could go look at the art in person as often as I wanted to. And I traveled a lot to New York City and other major cities, and I would try to find time to visit major museums and see the art in person.
Yeah.
Because this was pre-internet, before we had as much online access, because museums didn't have online collections.
Right.
Uh, Back when I was trying to learn as much as I could about art, I never thought that I would become a painter. I didn't feel that I had the level of skill that that would require.
Yeah.
And I wasn't, I was into a whole corporate life and I wasn't going to give that up. Yeah, and it wasn't so much about not being trained as was I willing to dedicate the time it would
Sure.
take
Fair.
to get really good at it.
Yeah.
Really, really good at it. So but I hung out in the art world and met a lot of artists, particularly when I lived in New York in the 70s. And, but when I really moved into the quilting world, particularly the art quilting and modern quilting world, uh, that has really fulfilled my need to be creative, and has given me, like I said, so much creative freedom.
Nice. And so you started into the quilting world, doing some quilts for your family. You started getting inspired by the modern world of modern quilting. So, how did you go from that to becoming an internationally known teacher and quilter, and then starting to have this other concern?
Good questions. I started teaching quilting uh, when I lived in Baltimore. I did a little bit of quilt teaching for the guilds that were in my area.
Okay.
And I mostly taught aspects of art quilting, more what we would call improvisational quilting techniques, but they
Yeah,
were
yeah.
art quilts for the wall. And when I moved with my husband to Florida about 11 years ago now, I was beginning to think about retiring from my corporate life
Hmm.
and really ramping up this other side, the teaching and the lecturing. And I wrote a couple of books. After writing a bunch of patterns, I wrote a couple of books.
Okay.
And I started being more active on social media. And that led to guilds contacting me to lecture and teach. So I would travel a bit to do that.
Okay.
And I entered a lot of quilt shows over the years in spurts,
Yeah.
and getting into both quilt shows and art shows, fine art shows.
Right.
Also, I guess, bolstered my confidence in my work and my
Sure.
vision. I loved teaching, and it came right out of my corporate life where I was a trainer and
Right.
consultant and worked with groups. So it was an easy transition in
Yeah,
that
yeah.
sense, working with groups. Now, the sustainability piece happened. I mean, my serious interest in the sustainability aspects happened because one of my guilds in Florida was contacted on two or three occasions by families of quilters who were not members, but the families found us when the quilter was no longer able to quilt or had passed away and asked, "Do you want all this fabric?"
Right. Yeah, yeah.
And
That's still a common
yes,
problem today,
yes, it
right?
is. And since there's this big bulge of quilters who are now in their 60s, 70s, 80s
Yeah.
plus, uh, it's become even more of a problem. But what happened was that when the team from our guild went to the homes of these quilters, thinking, well, it might be a few shelves of fabric, or maybe there's a closet, and they came back with, I want to say, thousands of yards of fabric between
Wow.
a couple of these estates, and it probably was thousands of yards. Some of the fabric was still in packets like kits,
Right.
never been opened, had never been touched. Some of the estates, the quilter not only had quilt fabric in her home. Here in Florida, we have small houses with no basement and no attic, particularly in
Right.
our area.
Right.
So people rent storage units.
Oh,
Or they fill up their garages with bins of
right.
fabric. I mean,
Oh,
bins and bins and bins. Now, when we moved to Florida, I had destashed because we had a bigger house. I had a basement, where my studio was. I had all this space, and I filled it with fabric. I wouldn't call myself a hoarder because I was using it, but I would never have used all the fabric I had. And I thought,
right.
this is silly to move this stuff because fabric's heavy. And when
Yeah.
you move, they weigh everything. And I thought,
Right.
am I going to pay to move all this? Anyway, went through all that. I've had it for a while. So I destashed with friends, and I don't think I sold any. I think I mainly gave it away to
Okay.
people, and pared down. But when I moved into this house, we were also renting a storage unit because we hadn't gotten rid of everything that we really needed to get rid of to fit in this much smaller house, the footprint of this house. And some of that was still fabric.
Okay.
And one day I said, okay, I'm moving all this into my house and I'm going to start getting rid of it in a serious way. So I started selling it on Instagram,
Okay.
these account.
What did
Then
that
this
look like? How
whole,
did you do that?
just, you know, wrap it up into bundles and do a post. I actually had a D-Stash Instagram account, and that's
Okay.
all I put
Okay.
on that account, but I would mention it on my main account too. And I
Okay.
got rid of tons of fabric because not many people were doing it that way at the time.
Right.
But anyway, long story short, it was the move helped me realize I had accumulated a lot of fabric and my tastes were changing.
Right.
My color palette changed. So a lot of stuff that I used to use a lot of and thought I would use clearly was not going to be used.
Right.
So there was a personal experience as well as this guild experience. We made, with the permission of the families, they said, do whatever. Our guild has an annual outdoor. It's not even. It's really an exhibit of our quilts, but we also sell and de-stash.
Right.
So members would donate, and then we had this huge, huge, huge amount of fabric that was donated. So we sold it for like next to no money, and we still made thousands of dollars
Wow.
to
That's a
go
lot of
into our
fabric.
educational fund, and a lot of this fabric was not complementary to the modern aesthetic because this was a modern guild.
Right.
So keeping it to use in our charity quilts wasn't really quite our taste.
Right.
So we destashed and used the funds to buy more modern fabrics for our charity quilts.
Right.
So seeing what was left, and in fact, we finally started turning down the requests
Right.
from estates because we're a small guild and we thought this is too much work, and it ends up sitting around in somebody else's house for months until our annual event. So we would pass them on to some of the larger guilds that could possibly, take on the task. And I realized that I was caught in the fear of missing out buying habit, go to QuiltCon, go to this quilt show, go to
Yeah.
that.
Who's
This
the
is
next
pre-pandemic.
designer? What's the next
And you see
trend?
all this beautiful stuff and
It's
it's
beautiful.
gorgeous. And you
Yeah.
and you want to support small businesses because
Of
most of them
course.
are women-owned or family-owned shops.
Yeah.
So you want to support them. You
Yeah.
want to support the designers,
Yeah.
most, not all, but most of whom are also women,
Yeah.
the named designers, and you want to support them.
Yeah.
So all these things cause me to buy more stuff than I would ever use
Yeah.
still, even after my destashing. And so I thought, I'm going to get very serious about this. How am I going to do that? So through my own examination of my habits, my emotions, the stories, I created a couple of lectures. Guild started asking me to give the lectures. I created actually an on-demand course around sustainability. But my focus is particularly on how to manage our purchasing habits and how to manage the stuff we already have in our homes. What do we do with it? And
Yeah.
not just the fabric, but also the quilts. Because I started hearing from quilters who would email me or post and say, everybody in my family has a quilt. Nobody wants them. And I have them piled in my closet. I mean, my guild members,
Yeah.
we talked because we talked about getting all this fabric from estates and what was the implication for us personally and how we
Right.
were managing our lives. So we had some thoughtful, supportive conversations because it's not about blaming it, and shaming yourself,
Of course.
but it's about being more conscious of your habits
Yeah.
and making different choices.
It's a
I
little bit of
still buy
taking
fabric,
stock, right?
but I buy it in a much more thoughtful and intentional way.
Yeah.
And I buy a lot less of it when I do buy it. And I typically have a series or, a series of quilts that I'm working on that I know that those fabrics will potentially become part of.
Right.
I also don't create a lot of scraps because of the way I work. I don't have tons of scraps.
Oh, that's good because there are those of us, myself included, who I do have scraps at the end. And
Mhm.
I'm like, okay, what am I doing with these? So I have a bin of textile scraps that I got to figure out someday what I'm doing with. And my challenge will be take down that box of scraps and put them together into a quilt. Go do that right now. Figure it out. Go do it.
Yeah. And then there are a lot of people who are paper piecers, who are small, scrappy piecers, who actually use those scraps.
Yeah.
And in fact, I was on Instagram earlier, and one of the designers, uh, pattern designers, was destashing bags of her scraps.
Right.
And she makes beautiful quilts. So, of course, the scraps are going to be beautiful.
Beautiful scraps. Yeah.
And if you use small pieces, I mean, yeah,
It's a
why wouldn't you
great
buy a
thing.
bag of
Yeah.
her scraps?
Yeah. Yeah. So it's interesting how, so what can you give us like two or three examples of what you recommend to people about how to approach their habits of purchasing?
Sure. I gave my sustainability lecture at QuiltCon this year.
Yeah,
And
nice.
during the lecture, I told the audience, I said, first of all, I love you that you're here. I said, secondly, I am going to buy some fabric, so don't shame me when you see me on the the vendor floor. However, my first habit is I look at the potential purchase, whether it's, fat, whatever it is, and I ask myself two things. One is, do I already have something in my stash that I could use rather than buy that?
Right.
Is it a close enough color of grunge? Do I have enough yardage in whatever it is? I don't buy a lot of prints, but I look at those prints and I think, what quilt or series am I working on going in and out of that I might use that print in? Or will I turn it into a backing? And if
Hmm.
I'm thinking of buying a backing, well, I already have a bunch of yardage waiting to be made into
Do I
backing.
need
So do I
this?
really need this? So it's, what do I already have?
Yeah.
That slows me down because the point is you got to slow down the purchase.
Yeah.
And if after I ask all of that, I come up either with, yep, I'm going to use it in the next quilt in my art quilts on Women of Song or whatever it is. Then I ask myself, how much of it do I really need? And the old Carole would buy 4 yards
Right.
automatically, just
Yeah.
because. Now I think, will a yard and a half do, or a yard? And I kind of know how much I tend to use in the types of things I make.
Yeah.
And I usually buy a yard. I don't buy fat quarters. I've never done that really, or rarely, I should say. But a yard is my minimum. 2 yards is my maximum, with a couple of exceptions in some of the ombres,
Okay.
because there are some colors in the ombre series that I work with that I know I use a lot of.
Right.
And, I'm always going to use a lot of it. Now, full disclosure, Maywood Studios, who makes the gelato ombres, is a sort of a sponsor now,
Okay.
although I've been using their fabrics for years and years and years. But a year or so ago, they approached me. I think they approached me, or maybe I approached them, but either way, they said, we'd love to send you fabric. No obligation, no requirements. If you'd like some yardage, just let us know.
Okay.
Because I was posting things I was making with their fabrics.
Right.
And they were obviously very grateful for
So
that.
a mutually beneficial
Yeah.
relationship. Yeah.
And I've been an ambassador in the past with a lot of requirements and, whatever. But this felt open ended. And even so, I ask them for minimal amounts. I am not asking for bolts of anything.
Right. You ask for what you need.
I ask for what I need and what I
Yeah.
know I'm going to be using
Yeah.
in, assuming my health stays good for the next year to 2 years. I
Yeah.
mean, that's how far out I look. So
Yeah.
it's interrupting your automatic buying. What do I already have? And buying minimal amounts that fit with the way you use fabrics. If you're a fat quarter person, then you buy a couple of fat quarters or half a yard.
Right.
I'm more of a yardage person, so a 1 yard length is really the minimum that is useful to me.
Yeah.
The other
Full.
thing is fear of missing out. And this,
Right.
God bless them, I love the fabric designers. I really do. I love looking at the new stuff. And the manufacturers in the past have pushed out their lines and retired them quickly,
Yeah.
relatively quickly.
Yeah.
And that helped the shops because they weren't stuck with old inventory. They
Right.
could really sell out and then get fresh stuff in. So I understand that part of it. And I have to remind myself that I may see a new line of XYZ from ABC person whose work I love. Am I going to invest in it? Am I going to use it? And if so, how much am I going to buy?
Right.
And I remind myself, well, I love that line. You know what? In a year, they're going to do another line. If I don't buy this, they're going to come up with something new and equally wonderful in a year.
Right. And something that you'll love just as much.
I'll love
Yeah.
just as much and maybe even more, and I might be ready to use it.
Yeah.
So that it's interrupting that, anxiety. Oh my goodness, it's going to go away. But if you love a certain designer and you want to collect everything he or she makes, go for it as long as you know what you're doing. And I remind myself, I mean, I look at uh, my house where I store my fabric. Every few months, I look at what I have and I think, am I piling up? Is stuff just sitting? Because I have some fabrics that I've owned for years that I'm just starting to use again
Yeah.
in some new work I'm doing. So I'm glad I kept it. But if I hadn't, I would have found something else. But I still de-stash. I did a de-stash last fall. Yeah,
Okay.
last fall. Once again, bundled stuff up, put it on Instagram. I destashed on feelgoodfibers.com on their
Yeah.
website.
Yeah. That's a great spot for
Yeah,
destashing and for
yeah,
finding fabrics too, right?
yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. And so I still destash,
Yeah.
and my buying is very minimal. My acquisition of ombres is very minimal, very disciplined, I guess I should say.
Yeah, I think it's like mindful purchases, right? Like paying
Yes.
attention to the impact of what you're doing and do you need it? I do that in my everyday shopping. Do I need this? I mean, part of it is I end up then getting sort of I overthink a little too much and I'm asking myself maybe too many questions. Sometimes you just like, maybe I just need to give myself a bit of a break and sometimes it's okay to purchase the things. I
Yeah.
was at a festival this weekend and I really wanted to buy myself a new mug. I'm at my sister's house and so I wanted to have my own tea mug at her house.
Mhm.
And we kept going around and I found this one that I kind of liked and we kept on walking and my sister said, if you're still thinking about it by the time we're leaving, then you should probably go back and get it.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
just letting yourself sit with it for a minute. You don't have to buy it right away, just because you think you need to get a mug. Did I
Mhm.
really need it? So, yeah,
Yeah.
mindfulness is important, I think.
Yes, it is. That self-awareness, and not just of our action habits, but our emotional states. Because I don't plan to make myself unhappy by saying, oh, denial, denial, denial. I mean,
Right.
nobody wants to live that way. So I really have reframed it as, what will I use? And it's in the using of the fabric that I get the most joy,
Right.
not in looking at it sitting on my shelf.
Right.
And there are some people who swear that that's where they get their joy. And okay,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. I was the I guess fortunate inheritor of my mother's stash of fabric after she passed away. And it was very overwhelming. And I'm a quilter.
Mhm.
So, but we used really different fabrics. We did really different, she did a lot of calico stuff, a lot of impressionist style art pieces. And so she would use the
Mhm.
calicos and the flowers in the work that she did. And I don't. I use
Mhm.
solids or handprints. And
Right.
so I'm looking at this fabric going, I don't know what to do with all this fabric. And it was very overwhelming for me to see that and then translate that into my own stash of fabric. And I'm thinking, what am I leaving my kids? Because if
Mm.
I don't deal with it, they're going to have to deal with it because I am,
Yeah.
as much as I'd like to think I'll be here forever, apparently I'm not. So
No. As far as we know, none of us
none
is
of us are
anymore,
getting out of this alive. So
no matter how many Marvel movies I
it's true.
watch.
So I realized like I have this obligation to my future generations that are going to be dealing with my collections of stuff. What
Mhm.
am I leaving for them and how would they use it and how would they dispose of it? Because I sure don't want to see it going into a landfill. I sure don't want to see it just being wasted. I don't really want there to be much for them to have to deal with.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's what I hear from particularly quilters who are in my age group, 60, 70, 80, and we're still active, and some are very, very active and prolific, and churn out a lot of work.
Yeah.
And then that's the other end of it. What do we do with the quilts? And fortunately, there are many, many community organizations that accept and use quilts for children, for shelters,
Yeah.
sometimes after disasters.
Yeah.
Although they tend to get way too many quilts after disasters.
Yeah. Yeah. And get
But
overwhelmed. Yeah.
local efforts, our guilds have been able to dispose of quilts pretty easily, actually.
Yeah.
And I've been noticing that I'm a member of two modern guilds here in Sarasota. I'm noticing that slowly but surely, members will bring in a couple of quilts and they'll say, these may not be, quote, as modern as the stuff I'm doing now, but they've been in my stash and I need to gift them and put them in our charity quilt pile. And
Yeah.
that's fine. That's perfectly fine. That's wonderful.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's yeah, I think it's awesome to see that and see them move along to a place where they will be used and be loved.
Yeah.
There's nothing more disheartening than thinking that quilts are ending up in landfills.
Right. And that's the worst case
It's the
scenario.
worst case scenario,
And
really.
we all have heard a story from someone we know who was driving down the street and spotted this absolutely wonderful quilt sitting on top of a trash can, or
Yeah.
wrapped, the in the pile of blankets that the movers had left behind.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
You know,
Yeah. Like, what is this? Yeah.
yes. Um, or going to an estate sale and getting a box. In fact, a friend of a friend found some absolutely beautiful Baltimore album quilt blocks,
Oh my God.
type blocks, or maybe it's Carolina Lily, but that kind of hand applique
Yeah.
precision work, beautiful work. Bunch of blocks in a box at an estate sale.
Yeah.
And these were vintage. They had not been made recently.
Wow.
And my friend is a long armor, and she ended up long arming the top after the other person put the blocks together.
Okay.
And I doubt she paid anything significant for them.
Yeah, not
Um,
certainly not the blood, sweat, and tears that probably went into making
no,
them.
no.
Yeah.
So yeah, and once I give a quilt away, whether it's to a family member or whatever, and I tell them, when I come visit your house, you do not have to pull out Aunt Carol's quilt.
Yeah.
I am not going to ask you where that quilt is.
Yeah.
If you let the dog sleep on it and that's the best use for you, more power to you. I
As
don't
long as it's
care anymore.
used in some way or pass it on to
Yes.
somebody who will use it, whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
if you see a homeless person and it's in the trunk of your car and you want to give it to that person, please do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because once it's out in the world, I'm moving on to the next thing I make because it's in the making and the
Yeah.
gifting.
I feel that way about the art quilts that I do. A lot of people ask me if I have trouble selling my quilts. And for me, it's the process of the design and the execution, and the time I get to spend bringing it to life.
Yes.
That's what I get out of it. And
Yes.
having it go to the next person who is getting so much out of the finished product, it doesn't owe me anything anymore. It's
Right.
I've gotten what I needed from it. So now it's going on to the next person, and that's exactly the trajectory that that piece needs to have. And if that person no longer needs that piece or passes on themselves and it goes somewhere else, that's where it needs to go, and that's okay. Whatever happens, it doesn't have to come back to me. I have had a quilt
Right.
come back to me. I don't know what to do with it. I'm just like, I can't really sell it. It's a piece that I made 25 years ago. So my work is so
Mhm.
different now. So I can't really sell it again. It's too big for
Yeah.
me to hang up anywhere. I have nowhere to put it in my house.
Right.
So it's
Well,
tricky.
I think because quilts, the word quilt, even though it's art quilt or textile art, but if people associate it with quilts, we think of quilts as a piece of home comfort.
Yeah.
It kept you warm. There's a security, safety in the use of the everyday utilitarian quilt.
Yeah.
And so I think that's where a little bit of that, how can you, I couldn't bear to sell my quilts or not wanting to give them away or
Yeah. They
something.
feel attached to
Uh,
them.
Nobody says that to a person who paints.
No, it's true.
We don't say that to a person who does charcoal drawing.
It's interesting.
Oh my
So what do
goodness,
you
how
think
can you?
that is? Where do you think that's?
Because fine art, we do tend to think of fine art as a decorative, high value item, even though we may be an amateur at it.
Yeah.
And it's to go somewhere. It's to have a life somewhere. But a
And
quilt is for the home. That's just the
and I guess that somehow that's been equated as lesser than, or in
oh
some
yeah,
ways, right?
absolutely.
Yeah, and I
There
mean
is
that
a
there's a whole, like, that's a whole, I'm thinking, oh my God, this is a big rabbit hole going down because it's really coming back to the women's craft, right?
mhm.
And the value behind that women's craft, and not considering it on the same level as fine
Yeah.
art.
Well, and that got illustrated in a very small way, one data point recently. Uh, a pretty well-known quilter whose work sells for serious money uh, noticed that one of his pieces was on an auction site. And the
Okay.
price, I mean, I could easily have afforded to buy it at the price. And I thought, oh my God, I should jump on that auction. Do these people even know what they have? But the
Right.
price started to go up, possibly because he posted about it. He may have I don't know if he contacted them or not, uh, but it brought to mind to me how the value of textile art can drop if it's not in knowledgeable hands.
Yeah, for
And
sure.
in this case, that auction house really didn't know what they had.
Right.
So whoever ended up buying it,
Got a
now
deal.
the artist who made it, he gets no benefit because he had sold it to someone who,
Right.
and it ended up in this auction.
Wow. Yeah, it's an interesting topic that I would love to kind of dig into, but not today because we're running out
Yeah.
of time. But but
Yes.
the whole idea around that women's craft and the idea of value behind that
Yeah.
and how is that impacting sustainability of the quilting industry and quilters as artists and quilters as producers, like if we don't start seeing the value for the work, then we don't have a sustainable and viable industry, right?
Yeah, and as I think about it, part of my thinking, and I'm not in any conclusion about this, but part of the way I try to think about it is segments. There is a hobbyist segment,
Yeah,
the person who wants to make quilts for family or charity. And I mean, she's either making her own patterns or she's using contemporary patterns or whatever, but that's her thing.
yeah.
And she is not in it as a business. She is not going to sell her work.
Her
She
value for that is different.
Right. And that's a lifestyle, I hate to say choice, but you know what I mean? I mean,
Yeah,
that's a segment of our industry.
yeah, for sure.
And they support the business people, the
The
textile
fabrics.
designers, fabric designers,
Yeah,
manufacturers, pattern designers, the
yeah,
teachers,
yeah,
they help us make a living.
yeah,
And then there's the art segment, people who are making work, who are making fine art out of textiles,
yeah,
out of fiber. And that's a different component altogether.
yeah, yeah. And it's a battle. It's been a battle for me for 30 years in the trying to find space in the industry that um where I feel like valued in what I do. And I've been fairly fortunate most of my way through it that I've been able to charge well for what I make and
Hmm.
but I also don't make a full-time living out of doing it.
Right. And
I
that was
do
never
it,
my intention either,
yeah,
because I had a full-time corporate life, and
your side thing.
this business grew out of an interest and love
Yeah.
of fiber and love of quilts and
Yeah.
love. And I try to be respectful of my colleagues who are making a living, who need to make a living,
Yeah.
and make sure that my pricing, my teaching fees and so forth are commensurate with what they need to charge.
Right. There's a disconnect between the hobbyist and
Mhm.
the other folks that are doing it in this business sense. The hobbyist doesn't see the need to have that same valuation to their work because they don't need the money and they're not doing it for those reasons. And yet it does kind of undermine things that the folks who are in this industry trying to make a living doing it and trying to, like, I would love to do this full time and make a living doing it. I'd love
Yes.
to say goodbye to the corporate job.
Right.
But I can't at this point, and I might at some point be able to, but that hasn't grown to that stage yet. And it's getting there, but it's
Well,
still not enough that I can sever that cord.
the individuals who, and we were having this conversation in the art quilt world 25 years ago,
Yeah.
who was actually making a living as an art quilter, and the list
Yeah.
was like, one
Yeah.
hand. I think that those quilt artists who are dead, dead serious about it have to move into the fine art world.
Yeah.
You have to.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very tricky to get into that space as a textile artist, though, and to be accepted into it. Very
But
tricky.
there are people who have done it and they have a particular strategy about it and have been able, from what I can see, to be successful. I mean, we all know about Bisa Butler and her
Yeah.
extraordinary and well-deserved success.
Yeah, absolutely. There's I think there's space for it. And I think that we're going to see more shifts. And one of the things that I really love about a lot of the art quilters that I'm starting to see nowadays is the narratives behind those art quilts are starting to
Hmm.
focus on sustainability.
Hmm.
And that's
Yeah.
exciting to see, right? We've got like Chris English doing some amazing work.
Hmm.
There's really some beautiful pieces out there. Lorraine Turner is fantastic doing advocacy work around animals. There's some really incredible pieces being created um, in the ideas and spaces around sustainability and different approaches, obviously different
Right.
approaches, but still has that undertone of we need to pay better attention to what we're consuming, how we're consuming it, and what we're doing to the planet because of it. So there's like
Yeah.
the artivist that's out there doing those kinds of works is kind of exciting to see that happening and growing.
And I would argue that some of those individuals either came out of art school or art school adjacent experiences, I'll
Sure,
call them,
sure. Okay.
and or are influenced by the
Yeah.
broader fine arts movement,
Yeah.
where
Yeah, no, you're probably
advocacy
right.
is much more accepted than it is in the quilt world. You've got to fight a little harder
Yeah.
for if you're going to be in an advocacy space around any issue
Yeah,
in
for
the
sure.
quilt
For
world.
sure.
And you might get censored out of shows still today.
Oh, for sure. For sure. Yeah. Yeah. I've been not accepted for some of the things that I've done. And some of it was just the technique. When I first started 25 years ago, thread painting wasn't a thing. It wasn't
Yeah.
in the quilt world. And they didn't know what to do with it. And so I
Hmm.
wasn't accepted into many a show because of the thread
Yeah.
painting I did.
Yeah.
That's different. I'm
And
so glad to see that's changed today. That's really awesome.
modern quilters, or those of us who were making modern quilts even before the movement got
Yeah.
itself organized, if we belong to a more traditional oriented guild,
Yeah.
and if they accepted that piece, they didn't know where to put it. They would put it in the
Right.
art quilt category, which it really wasn't.
Not really. Yeah.
And it wasn't, you know, intricate piecing with, a million tiny pieces and all the points are lined up. It wasn't that.
Right.
So there was no category for it. So it always
Right.
looked a little odd hanging in some shows, even.
Yeah.
But most guilds now are recognizing that there is a category called modern,
Yeah. That's different.
or maybe they call it contemporary, but
Yeah.
increasingly they'll segment it out as with a clearer definition,
Yeah.
and that's a great thing to see.
It is. I've enjoyed seeing. I took a bit of a hiatus for a while and came back to the quilt world about 7 or 8 years ago. And the shift that happened in the decade that I wasn't really heavily in it was just really incredible to see and exciting to see as well. It's good. I think it's really good. And the shifts that have happened around sustainability over the last
Yes.
5 years in the quilt world, even
Yes.
just 3 years, has been
Yes.
really significant. The conversations are starting to happen. The quilt that won at Houston last year was Sue Sherman. She won a show prize. It was best of show, and it was a quilt titled "Dear Humans." And it was about the animals,
Hmm.
shaming humans for the work that we've
Right.
been doing to the planet, and starting to see that kind of stuff in these big shows and having shows having sustainability categories and
Yes.
seeing that
Yes.
kind of stuff, seeing you doing a lecture on sustainability at QuiltCon, like these things are all really important. And 5 years ago were not happening.
No.
So
No.
I think the next 10 years is going to be pretty exciting in the quilt world around sustainability.
I think so too. And I agree with you. The sustainability category, which is really being defined as repurposed fabric, not, mainly made of repurposed, not
Right.
new bought, not new
Right.
purchased fabric, which is not what I do.
No.
I make some art quilts that have some repurposed fabrics in them, but I'm not a repurposed fabric quilt maker. But I'm actually going to partner with someone who is,
Okay, good.
and she and I are going to do a webinar next January.
Amazing.
Uh, we're just ironing out the details, but
Right.
she is deep into the repurposing world.
Fantastic.
So she and I are going to partner because we come at it, from two perspectives
Yeah.
that are absolutely compatible.
Awesome. Yeah. No, and I love seeing these collaborations starting to happen as well.
Hmm.
And just having the conversations on a regular basis, I think is so, so, so important. And thank you for being here and having this conversation. I'd love to ask you more questions, but I think we should wrap it up.
Oh, yes.
And maybe we can get together again at a future date and have some more chats and more conversations around some of the stuff that's going on in your world.
Thank
Um,
you.
can you tell us how people can find you?
Sure. My main website, blog site is my name, Carole with an E, lylesshaw.com.
Nice.
And my Instagram is also my name at Carole Lyles Shaw. So
Excellent.
you can find me there, although Instagram does not show you most of what your people you're following posts. So do go to my website, sign up for my newsletter, and you'll hear about everything I'm doing.
Excellent. Excellent. Yeah. And we'll put that into the show notes as well so people can easily find you. Thank you so much for being here and having a very honest and interesting conversation. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And thanks for listening, everybody.
I hope you enjoyed that conversation. I love having the opportunity to talk with other professionals in the industry and be able to have those kinds of open, honest, and thoughtful conversations about all of the different issues that are surrounding our industry right now. And especially for folks who come with the kind of experience that Carole has, to be able to address and bring that kind of the work that she's doing for herself and for the other folks that she's working with when she's teaching and lecturing. She's bringing her own experiences to that conversation. And I really appreciate being able to hear about all of that. And I hope you enjoyed it too. Thank you so much for joining me and listening to Threads of Sustainability. I really appreciate all the support that I've received over the last year. If you're interested in supporting the podcast, you can do that in a couple of different ways. You can go over to my website and you can buy me a cuppa, and that helps keep the lights on here. You can also like, follow, and share the podcast with people that you know that might be interested. If you're interested in joining a community where we talk about all the different kinds of things around sustainability and share projects and share our journeys with each other, you can join the Green Stitchers Hive. You can follow me on Instagram. I'm on Facebook. You can send me an email. I'd love to hear from you and hear what you think about the podcast. Have a great day.